إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم ألهمنا علما نفقه به أوامرك ونواهيك وارزقنا فهم نعرف به كيف نناجيك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافية يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أغننا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وأكرمنا بالتقوى وجملنا بالعافية يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم إنا نستودعك ما قرأناه وما نقرأه في هذا المجلس وما قبله وما بعده، فاحفظه علينا حتى ترده إلينا وقت احتياجنا إليه يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أكرمنا بنور الفهم وأخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وافتح لنا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم يا من مقاليد الأمور كلها بيده وإليه يرجع الأمر كله يا فتاح يا عليم يا فتاح يا عليم يا فتاح يا عليم افتح علينا فتحا قريبا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وسدد لساني واهدي قلبي وافعل كذلك بأحبابي أبدا وارزقنا كمال فتوح العارفين والفقه في الدين مع كمال الإخلاص والصدق واليقين والعافية والغنى والنصر والحفظ والنفع والانتفاع وخيرات الدارين وعلوم الأولين والآخرين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. الحمد لله الحمد لله. We are now at we're at the part of it. Coming to the end of Aqidah Mujmalah. Like the last parts are all quite straightforward and not much of sharah to do. Last two parts. Right, so we were at وَتَبَرَّأْنَا مِنْ كُلِّ دِينٍ يُخَالِفُ دِينَ الْإِسْلَامِ. Right, so we claim ourselves free from everything that goes against Islam and whatever is in this dunya that goes against our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or it's not in line with our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and teachings of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we tell ourselves that we are free of it and we stay away from it. And then he says here, وَآمَنْتُ بِكُلِّ كِتَابٍ أَنزَلَهُ تَعَالَى. This is part of our aqidah. And so aqidah is that we believe in every book that was revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And there are more than actually 4 books that we know, but specifically we must know the 4. Right? Torah, Injil, Zabur and Quran. Right? So Torah on the Nabi Musa alayhi salam, Injil on the Nabi Isa alayhi salam, Zabur on the Nabi Dawood alayhi salam, and Quran onto our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now, so we believe in all of these 4, and also there are more. Right? There are more that we do not know about. And then you have the Suhuf. And the Suhuf are the scriptures of Nabi Ibrahim and Nabi Musa alayhi wasallam, as mentioned in Surah A'la. Surah A'la mentions about Suhuf Ibrahim wa Musa. Right? This all of this in the scriptures of Nabi Ibrahim and Nabi Musa, and all of this basically tells us. So when we say we believe in every book that Allah has revealed, and we know that these books are already a lot of them have been adulterated, they have been changed, right? They have been corrupted by people until our time, whereby the Quran is saved, and the Quran is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah promised that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect the Quran till the end of time. So it is in the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to disallow any corruption in the Quran, because there's no more prophet after Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With regards to the other books, every time there were distortions, there were Nabi that was sent between Nabi Musa and Nabi Isa. There were Anbiya that were sent, and they will correct what Nabi Musa came with and bring it back to what is original. Right? So whenever they corrupt, what is in their books, it will be brought back to the original until Nabi Isa came, and Nabi Isa brought the Injil. And the Injil confirms what is in the Torah. But the Injil, basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made some of the rulings lighter, like on the Bani Israel through the Injil. In the Torah, it was heavier. Right? So one of the examples is that in the laws of the Torah, right, is that when it comes to murder, there is only one recompense for murder, which is that the murderer be killed. There is only one law, right, that the murderer be killed. In Nabi Isa's Sharia, that if somebody is murdered, there is only one law, that you give compensation. You give diyah, you give blood money, compensation. In the Sharia of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's a choice. In our Sharia, there's a choice. If somebody is murdered, the family can demand that the murderer be executed, or the family can opt for blood money. They can opt for a compensation. So the Sharia of Rasulullah is in the middle. It's the Sharia of Nabi Musa. It is execution. There is no way around it. It's not even a choice. It has to be execution. If somebody is caught to be a murderer, and if the Sharia of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, it has to be blood money. You can only take blood money, and there's no other choice around it. The Sharia of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the Sharia of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, middle. It's in the middle. You can choose if you want execution of the murderer for the family, or they can choose if they want blood money from the murderer or the murderer's family to pay up. So that is why you can see that it is a middle way. The middle way of the Sharia of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nabi Musa's Sharia was a very strict Sharia, and some of the scholars will say that, for example, for us every Friday, only the men are required to go to the masjid, sit for 2 khutbahs and sit for 2 rak'ats. That is our Friday. For the Jews, for them what they have is Sabt, the Sabbath, the Sabt. And for them, it begins on the Maghrib of Friday to the Maghrib of Saturday. And they're not allowed to do any work at all. They're supposed to spend 24 hours in ibadah. That was the Jewish law. 24 hours in ibadah. They cannot do any work at all. And work even includes putting on the fan, putting on the aircon, or putting on the light. It's called work. It's called work. They're not allowed to put on anything of electricity, because I had a Jewish friend, so she would tell me all the Sabbath laws, that they can't go on any form of transportation. So they can't go on a car, they can't go on so they're just supposed to stay at home and just worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their law is strict, and the law is very strict on the Jews. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put heavy laws on the Jews, but they were still stubborn. And they were very stubborn. And it was said that the Jews, if they did a sin in the night, the sin will be written in the morning, either on their door or on their forehead. Some narrations on their forehead, the sin is on the forehead, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, or on their door. This is the price the Jews have to pay when they commit sins. Allah was very hard on them, but they were very stubborn. They were very stubborn. We know in the Quran, Allah in Nabi Musa's story, that when they committed shirk and they worshipped the idol, that they worshipped the golden calf. What was the tawbah? The tawbah was to kill themselves. In the Quran, and there are 2 riwayat on what this means. To kill themselves, that means kill those who were doing this evil. Kill them. So that means it is the tawbah is to be killed, and then Allah brought them back to life. To actually go through death, and then Allah brought them back to life. Subhanallah, this is the Sharia of the Jews. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very merciful and lenient on us, the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not like we don't you do something and straight away your sin is being written on the front of your door. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. MashaAllah. And for us, tawbah is just a secret repentance. It's all. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for sincere heart to forgive you. Full stop. That's all that is required for a tawbah. And even when we say about the hudud laws of Islam, which some people in our zaman might say is very, very harsh, but basically these laws, obviously these laws are deterrents. This will deter people from coming into this kind of really terrible sins, And that's why we speak about the books, we speak about law, because the books all contain law. So Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Sharia, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so the hudud laws is to the point whereby if the person who has been ruled upon him the hudud laws, if he flees, they don't actually pursue him, let him flee. They don't actually run after him, to try and execute him. Let him flee. They flee. And in fact, in Rasulullah's time, with regards to zina, they actually never, there was not a single case whereby it was found out by witnessing. All of the zina cases in the time of Rasulullah was all because the person who did the zina admitted. And kept admitting and kept admitting and kept saying to Rasulullah SAW, to the point he had no choice but to execute the law on that person, because the person kept coming to him from the front, from the side, I kept telling him about the sin that the person has done. And that was why he had to execute the law. But in his time, the law was not actually executed in a sense on someone whom it was witnessed upon. In that way, and the Rasulullah, he would turn away from people when they came to try and tell him their sins. He would turn away from them. He don't want to hear from them. He would turn away. Right? Because in the ummah of Rasulullah SAW, if you did a sin, no matter how terrible your sin, no matter how grave your sin, it's you and Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. Just do your tawbah. Right? Just quietly go do your tawbah. Don't go and tell everybody about the sin. Just quietly do your tawbah. In the hadith, Rasulullah SAW said that all of Allah's servants are forgiven except for those who refuse. And those who refuse, who are they, Rasulullah? Who are those who refuse to be forgiven? Right? And they say that there are those whom Allah covered over their sin in the night, but in the morning they told people, I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that. They exposed themselves. Or they did sin in the day and Allah covered over them. Then in the night they went around saying, I did this and I did that and I did, and they told people. So these are the people who are, right, they are not forgiven because they themselves expose their sins. And not forgiven here means not that Allah can't forgive them. No, Allah can forgive them subhanahu wa ta'ala, but is that because they expose themselves, the society now remembers. Right, so on that meaning of not forgiven, in the sense, people now know, oh, you are the one who did that, you are the one who did this, before you have ever done this before, and you have done that before. And then it becomes like a blemish on that person's record, because they expose themselves. But can Allah forgive them? Yes, Allah can forgive any sins. Right? In this world, for example, so in this dunya, any sin that you ask for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive. And even in the akhirah, for sins that you didn't even do tawbah for, it's possible that Allah can forgive you as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is generous and He is great. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we mentioned before, between the creation, there is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will leave the creation to settle things between themselves. But then again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves reconciliation and Allah loves forgiveness. So Allah will promise the one who is wronged reward if they forgive their brother who has wronged them. Because Allah loves reconciliation and Allah loves forgiveness subhanahu wa ta'ala. MashaAllah, it's really like the more you ponder over it, the more you think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you see so much goodness. The goodness is in, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but Allah's goodness is beyond imagination. Of course, it's beyond, and whenever you just ponder over His goodness, you will feel so overwhelmed, subhanahu wa ta'ala, over Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You feel so overwhelmed. We just went through the Book of Assistance, Habaishu, and Habaishu was doing the Book of Assistance. And at the end of Book of Assistance, there is always kalam, which is basically hadith qudsi. And if you have the Book of Assistance, read through the last part, right, the khatimah of the Book of Assistance, and every single time, for myself, whenever I go through the last part of the Book of Assistance, it always gets to you. It always gets to me whenever the last part of the Book of Assistance, because it speaks about Allah's mercy, about Allah's generosity, about Allah's goodness, about Allah's forgiveness. And it's all hadith qudsi. It's hadith qudsi with other prophets. So Allah says, "O Dawood, tell my servants. O Musa, tell my servants." Right? And over and over again, that if they were to give me, right, their eyes, the tears from their eyes, right, and the fear in their hearts, Allah says, I will forgive them whatever that they have come with. Subhanallah. And even if you say that if it's half a tear that is shed, right, from a heart that is fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, half a tear that is shed from a heart that is fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the day of judgment, this half tear is placed on the scale on the day of judgment, and it will cause all the bad deeds, right, to be it will outweigh all of the bad deeds that someone has done, even if they have done bad deeds that fill up the entire earth, the entire universe. They have a tear of khashya, of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all the Book of Assistance, whereby Allah's mercy is just, it's why they are of the righteous. They say, how can people not love Allah? How can they not love Allah? Allah has given us so many reasons for us to run to him, for us to love him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many reasons subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's just that as what Allah himself says in the Quran, the biggest flaw is al-ghafla. That is the biggest flaw. The biggest flaw is heedlessness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't know that Allah is this kind. They don't know Allah is this merciful. They don't know that Allah is this loving, is this generous, is this forgiving subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in Book of Islam itself, it will say, Allah will say to the prophets, tell my servants that I am forgiving. Tell them I am merciful. Tell them I will accept them what they have done, and I will beautify. Tell them, right? Tell Allah's servants, right? We need to tell people more about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what the books are about. Right? The books of that are sent down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These books, Allah is telling us about Himself. It is from His sifat kalam, Allah mutakallim. He is telling us about Himself in His divine books subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what do we believe about these books? We believe that they are all the transcendent word of Allah. Transcendent meaning there is no beginning and there is no end. There is no beginning and there is no end. Why? Because these words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these books are from His knowledge subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there is no beginning and there is no end to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why it's a grave situation, it's a grave sin when someone says that these books are created. That the books of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah sends out, that Allah's word, they are created. Why? Because it's to say that Allah's knowledge is created. And that is mustahil, that cannot happen. Because something that is created went from not existing to existing. Right? So how can Allah's knowledge ever be non-existent? And not possible. Right? Allah's knowledge is existent all the time. There is no beginning, no end. So therefore His words is an expression of His knowledge subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He's informing us of what He knows, something of what He knows in His books. So His words are an expression of His knowledge subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore His words cannot have a beginning, and it cannot be created. Right? They're always Allah mutakallim, right? Azali. Right? He is the transcendent word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without beginning and without end and without limit, right? To the understanding of these words. And that is one of the secrets of why in the Quran Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explains some stuff in the Quran, but a lot of what is in the Quran is left unexplained. A lot in the Quran is left unexplained because the Quran will reveal itself with time. So from time to time, the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ulama, the awliya, they are the ones who will reveal to us what is in the Quran. People who are trained correctly on tafsir. Whereas anybody can open the Quran and just try to interpret what's in the Quran lah. But Allah has His people. Allah has His people, the Ahlullah. That is why the Ahlul Quran, they are called Ahlullah. The people of Quran, they are the people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are the ones who are given the right by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, it is through very stringent study. All of them go through very stringent training first, before they come to the Quran and do a tafsir of the Quran. But the Quran will be in Yufassir. The Quran will be opened up more and more and more from zaman to zaman to zaman to zaman. That is one of the mu'ajizah or the miracles of the Quran, that the meanings in the Quran is not limited to just what is spoken about in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we know and we understand and we believe that till the end of time there will be people who are the inheritors of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the inheritors of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who will explain to us and open up for us more and more meanings in the Quran. MashaAllah. And many in our zaman, if you Habib Omar, if you Habib Abu Bakr Mashhur, all of them, they have their own, when you do their tafsir, right? Of course, it's based on what has come from before, and then they will contextualize this to our zaman. And we take from them because we know they are not speaking from their nafs, but they are speaking for the islah, or for the rectification of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, so the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is without letter nor sound. Habib Abu Bakr has entire series, on YouTube. Tafsir. He has his entire series of tafsir on YouTube, whereby he does the tafsir of the Quran going by the tahawulat. and going by Fiqh Tahawulat, he does a tafsir of the Quran. It's really insightful, that he brings it to be contextualized to our zaman, to our time. Mashallah. So the Torah, the Injil, the Zabur, Quran, and the scriptures of Ibrahim and Nabi Musa, they are all, so Allah's word is without letter nor sound. So if somebody asks, then what does it mean? That when I say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, what does that mean? You see that is an indication, or that you see that is ishara. It's on the word ishara. It's an indication of Allah's word. But is Allah's word limited to alif, lam, ha, mim, dal, alhamd? Is that Allah's word limited to these letters? No. But Allah knows what His words are. Allah knows what His words are. But what we hear in our dimension, in our life in this world, we hear of the letters of the words of the Quran. That is a manifestation. It's a small manifestation of what the Quran really is. So it's something that we can understand as the creation. So what we hear of Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen is a small, very tiny manifestation of really what is Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that. So that's why we can say that, okay, what we understand is a manifestation. It's a manifestation. It's just like when we see the creation around us, we see a manifestation of Allah's straight qudra. Allah's straight qudra, His power subhanahu wa ta'ala, and His straight irada, His will subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has created this entire world. We see the world appear in front of us. We see things being created. We see babies being born. We see life and death around us. So we are witnessing but a tiny part of the qudra, of the meaning of the word qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of His power subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we see a tiny part of the meaning of the word irada, of the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So similarly, when we come to the Quran, we're seeing a tiny part of the meaning of the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so all that we're seeing is just the tiniest part, even a speck of what it is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not for us to go deep into it, because it will cause a lot of disturbance in ourselves, because we can't understand it. It is Allah's haqq. Like Allah is Allah's sight, and His basar, His sight. You don't go into it. You just know what it is not. Right? It's not with eyes. It's not with light. It's not with organs. It has no beginning. It has no end. So you know Allah sees. You know what it is not. It's not all these things. It's not like the creation. But what is it? You don't know. Right? What is it? We cannot know. But we know that Allah sees. Right? And in the definition, Allah sees, meaning that everything is revealed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without it ever being hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So I said you cannot go into it. You can like what? you cannot go into it because it's Allah's right. Right? This is the part of Aqidah. You cannot go into it because it is Allah's right. Only Allah knows Himself. So only Allah knows His sight. Only Allah knows His hearing. Only Allah knows His speech. Only Allah knows His knowledge. Only Allah knows His power and His will and His life. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. All we know is these are attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we don't know anything about them. We know that Allah has these attributes, but we don't know anything about them except what they are not. So you can say what they are not, but we don't know exactly how is Allah's life. There is no how. So Allah lives. Now, Allah's alive, yes. With a soul, no. We are with a soul. Allah's alive, yes. Full stop. Answer is full stop. Allahu Hayy, full stop. And there's no more commentary after that. Allahu Hayy. And He knows His Hayy. He knows His Hayat. He knows His life, subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot enter into this matter. It's Allah's matter. All we do is that we know He is alive. So we know that He's not a figment of our imaginations. We know that. We know that Allah is not like what they will say with other invented gods, that these are inanimate objects, that we pray to it for some, I don't know what's the Aqidah. The Aqidah is that when they pray to this is the polytheists, right? They pray to the idols. The Aqidah is the idols have some power in the idols, but they are not alive. there's an akidah going on. Right, so I must understand what is their akidah. Right, but it's basically the akidah of the Quraysh. Right, the akidah of the Quraysh. Right, in the time of Rasulullah, whereby they said when Rasulullah said to them, why do you pray to these idols? They are useless. Right, there's stone, there's no life to them, they're useless. And they said, no, these idols have power. The stones have power. They have no life, but they have power. Right? It doesn't make sense because it's wrong. It's wrong. Right? Anything that is batil doesn't make sense. Anything that is false does not make sense. Right? But they believe in it. Right? And the thing is, they don't know why they believe in it. Right? Why they believe in it. So in our zaman, if someone were to say, okay, you are committing shirk by believing that things that are not alive have power. Right? So for example, someone who wears they have all these like stones that they wear, right? The Chinese have it. The Chinese have all this jade, and they have a belief with the jade. Do you know that they have a belief with the jade? Right? The jade has certain properties. The jade. For us, we wear the aqiq. The aqiq following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? We also wear the ta'awith on our children. They put it on our children. Right? And the thing about it is that all of these are all asbab. You see as asbab. They're all means. But not for a moment, not for a moment can any Muslim say that these things have power. Not for a moment. Because Allah is the one who protects, Allah is the one who has power. Right? But we take these as means. And in the same line, we say with food. Right? So we don't say that food is the one that nourishes me, food is the one that gives me life. No, of course not. Right? Allah is the one who nourishes me, and Allah is the one who gives me life. Right? So then why do I take food? Min al-asbab. That's all. Right? Al-asbab la yusabbib. It's a statement in Aqidah. Al-asbab la yusabbib. The means don't cause. They don't actually cause. The means are just means. They don't cause anything. Right? So why do we take the means? As forms of ibadah. It's worship. It's just worship. Allah has instructed us to take the means. So we take the means, but there is no i'timad ala al-asbab. There is no, and there cannot be a reliance on the means. That's haram. That is haram and that's shirk to rely on the means. Because why? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power, there's no might except if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when people argue, this is somebody that day was asking me about this bracelet that they wear now in Tarim. This one they have the someone give it to me. They put black seeds inside. Do you know? Right, there are black seeds in these bracelets. Right, so it's supposed to ward off ain. It's prettier lah than putting a ta'wiz on yourself. Right, it's a bit prettier. So they put the ta'wiz has basically habba sauda inside. This habba sauda has some things inside the ta'wiz, and you keep it onto children. Right, this is something more adult, more pretty. Right, they this bracelet nowadays in the metal parts they put habba sauda. They actually put the black seed in the metal parts. One of the girls in the Rozara was asking me that she bought one of these for her mother, right, to give her mother, and told her mother that this is something that will block ain, because habba sauda is positive. And this is something that if you go into our zaman, you're speaking about positive energy, negative energy. What is ain? Ain is negative energy. Right? Habba sauda, sunnah, right, all of these things, zamzam, right, wudu, these are all positive energies. Right? So positive energies fighting negative energies. So we take all these things, and we understand all these things. The aqiq stone is known to have very positive energy. Right? The aqiq stone, so some used to wear it. Right? And if you ask the Chinese, they will say the jade stone has a lot of positive energy. It sucks away negative energy, right, from a person. Allahu Alam, Allahu Alam. It's Allah's creation, and Allah can do whatever He wants to do in His creation. But at the end of the day, it is not for us to have full reliance or have any reliance on any of these things. But it's just, you say, efforts. It's efforts. It means it's asbab. It's efforts. It's juhd. It's just juhd, right? It's your effort that you hope to get rewarded for. That's all, right? But Allah is the one who determines everything, subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the same thing in every part of our life. So, for example, in the Rasul's in his seerah, it's full of this, right? When he went for his hijrah. It's full of his effort. He put Sayyidina Ali in his bed. Right? He planned Sayyidina Abu Bakr to go out down south. Right? When they were going to the hijrah, right? They have all kinds of effort. to go in the cave, stay for 3 days, bring Sayyidina Abu Bakr's Mawla to bring the goats, the sheep to cover their tracks. Eventually, after all that effort, Abu Jahl stands right in front of the cave. So much effort put in, and only to have Abu Jahl in front of their cave, they are seeing Abu Jahl's feet. After all the effort, and still Abu Jahl found them. Then technically he found them. He did find them, But Allah shows Allah's in control. Allah just puts a spider, a dove, khalas. Abu Jahl goes on his way. He goes the other way. So you see, all of that Nabi Muhammad SAW did. Put Sayyidina Ali in his bed. Came out through the sand on the heads of the people outside. And then went to Sayyidina Abu Bakr's house, took the camel, went down the other way, climbed the mountain, had all this planned by Sayyidina Abu Bakr's daughter and his Mawla and everything. So much effort. Do we say to waste? Do we say all wasted that Abu Jahl actually found them? He actually came right to the mouth of the cave, right to the mouth of the cave. He was right there. Do you see that all of what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did was useless? No. All of what he did was rewarded. It was all rewarded, even though none of it stopped Abu Jahl from coming to the mouth of the cave. You see that? But Allah shows He's in power, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why, with regards to the Battle of Badr, if Allah wanted to, He could have sent one angel, not an army, one angel, to go and shout at all the disbelievers, and they will all die, as Allah has done in the past. In other nations, one angel goes, shouts, and everybody's dead. In Surah Yasin, Allah describes this. But when that happens, no one gets a reward, because it's the angel shouting. Halas. But if there is a jihad going on, if there is fighting going on, if there is battle going on, all of the Muslims who are involved, they all get rewarded. And they all get the reward, and they get the station, and they get martyrdom. You see that? So the same end result, you want the disbelievers to die off, right? You can either shout, all of them die off, or Allah sends a disease, they all die off, right? But no one gets a reward. Right? Because Allah does everything, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah makes the Muslims put in effort so that He can give them their reward. Right? Subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gives them their reward. Right? So same thing so these are all like big examples. So even small examples like taking medicine, taking honey, taking habatus sauda, right? Do these things stop you from falling sick? The things themselves don't. The things don't stop you from falling sick. Allah stops you from falling sick. Allah preserves your health. And for us to understand, the senses are all asbab. Okay. Now, right, so all of the scriptures are sent to, or from Nabi Ibrahim, Nabi Musa. Allah sends the scriptures and books only to prophets and not to ordinary men. So the only one in its original form till today is the Quran. And therefore, and there was one Sayyidina Umar Rasulullah found Sayyidina Umar learning the Torah. He was studying the Torah, and this upset Rasul so much. He got very upset, Sayyidina Umar, that he was looking into the Torah. And when he asked Sayyidina Umar, why do you look into the Torah? And he says, maybe Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Umar also. Sayyidina Umar was Sayyidina Umar.
Sayyidina Ali was working at the gym.
And Sayyidina Umar was riwayat. This is riwayat of Sayyidina Umar whereby he was looking into the Torah as well. so they were looking into it. Sayyidina Umar's riwayat, he was looking to see if there's any wisdom that he can gain from the Torah. And then Surah Rasul said to him that what I have come with is enough for you. What I have come with is enough for you. The Quran is enough. All the wisdoms you find in the Torah, you will find in the Quran. And the danger is that you don't know what in the Torah is not true. What is manipulated in the Torah. So it's not for a Muslim, right, who is not strong or not having a good reason why you're looking into the Injil, into the Torah. Right? So it's not for a Muslim to actually go into that. And in fact, for us, we have not even learnt our Quran properly. Right? So why do you even want to go into the Injil and the Torah when the Quran itself is not even properly learnt? We have not learnt it one time round. Most of us, right? We have not studied the whole Quran. We have read it many times, mashallah.
If the narration or something other than this incident, about the prohibition of not
Of reading them. Yeah, that's the thing.
That look into the Bible.
And the thing about it is that Rasulullah SAW prohibited either Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Umar,
Yeah.
and they are the most intellectual Sahaba. They are the most intellectual Sahaba, Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Umar, and they have the highest taqwa as well. They're very strong taqwa, and even them, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stopped it, because you sure wish, it will bother a person, right? And I know there was one time my husband, because in Singapore it is not in Singapore it is not permissible. It is prohibited for any street da'wah in Singapore of any religion. So it's Islam and religion. So all religions are not allowed in Singapore, because it's basically in Singapore, okay, to defend my country, okay, right, to defend my country. Right, in Singapore, technically is to prevent racial riots, because it's happened in Singapore, racial riots, right? So there has been racial riots that were dangerous in Singapore, that happened in the past. So they prevent street da'wah to prevent open hatred in Singapore. So that is why it's prevented, right? Because they're so scared of any form of riot happening, or any form of hatred that will happen between the groups in Singapore, the racial origins group in Singapore. So street da'wah is not allowed on all religions, all of them not allowed, because in a sense it can rub people the wrong way. Right? So if anyone were to see someone doing street da'wah, right, in any religion, they can report that person to the police. You can actually report that person, because you are bothering our people of our religions. Yes. So my husband used to work in the primary school, and there was one time he was going out of the school, and there was a Christian missionary. As you can see how this happens, okay? And he was passing the Bible to primary school Muslim children. He was see how our I appreciate our country. They don't allow us to da'wah openly, but everybody gets it. Right? So on the Christians, on the Muslims, on everybody, nobody can open da'wah. Nobody. Right? So my husband saw that this Christian sitting outside the primary school, targeting specifically the Muslim children. See how this can be? See how dangerous this can be? And passing them the Bible, right, for them to read. Alhamdulillah, our kids don't read. Our kids are all lazy to read. They never read anything, right? But he was actually passing the Bible to these children. So my husband actually took one from this guy, right? And after he called the police on him. Yeah, you can do it in Singapore. You can do it. You can call the police on these people, and they will be arrested, and they will be fined, right, for going against this law, because it disturbs the fabric of society. You're allowed to do da'wah to your own people in Singapore. If you're doing it in the open, to your own people. That means Muslims to other Muslims. So for us as Muslims, we can go to other Muslims and do da'wah to them. Those who are sinning, those who are at the pubs, you can do your da'wah to other Muslims, but you cannot touch the non-Muslims in the open. In the open, you cannot in Singapore. So it goes two ways. It goes two ways.
In the street, but if you're meeting up, if you're having a class.
Yes, they can come. So if I'm having a class, I announce I'm having a class to get to know about Islam. I can announce it. People can choose to come. They can choose to come. But I can't go out there and hand out flyers or leaflets to tell non-Muslim about my religion. You can't do that in Singapore. But you see, on the side of non-Muslims doing it to our Muslims, we're happy, right? They can't do it to our Muslim children because it's against the law. In Singapore, it's against the law to do that. Right? So my husband actually called on that guy lah. The guy who was in front of the primary school. Why in front of primary school giving up Bibles to the Muslim children? La hawla wala quwwata illa billah. Right? So my husband he called up. But he opened the Bible because he didn't know. So he opened up the Bible, and straight away in the Bible you will see stories of prophets committing sins. From the beginning of the Bible, there are stories after stories after stories of Anbiya, of prophets committing sins and committing terrible sins. And this is what the Christians have done. The Christians have messed with the prophets to make the prophets sinners. So they will say it's okay for us to sin because even the prophets sin. Right? But our aqidah is impossible. Prophets cannot sin. It's not possible. Right? But just to open and to read, Nabi Dawud did this, Nabi Musa did this, Nabi Adam did this, Nabi Sulaiman did this. The Bible has so much slander on the Prophet. It bothers you. For this on end, it bothers you. because you read all these kind of lies about the prophets, and even that for us, even for our own Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when you read lies about him, it bothers you, right? That you shall wish there is this that you get so disturbed that someone said that about our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, this is why for me, when during the time whereby they were drawing the cartoons of Rasulullah, I never let myself see a single one. I don't want to see it, like, because I know it will ring in my head. The image, if they draw an ugly image of my Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that those images, I know that it will bother me, and it will ring in my head. So I never let myself, during the time I think in Denmark, right, they were drawing all these cartoons and whatever. Till today, I've not seen a single cartoon. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it because it's all slander on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all it does is bother me. That's all it does. And so for us, you know what, we keep our happy image of our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have a pure image of him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I don't want to see what this video say about him. I don't want to. And so all of this stuff, you push it aside. And it hurts us when you hear slander about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it should hurt you. You should feel the pain when someone says that Muhammad did this and he's like this and this. There should be this pain in your heart. So that is why we are not allowed to read all of these other books. We're not allowed. And I know there are people who do it. There are people who actually, they go into the Bible, they go into the Torah, they go into and they have not even begun the Quran. And why are they doing all these other things? They've not even begun the Quran. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah. Right, so it's the only one in original form today. So we say amantu bi kulli kitabin anzalahu Allah ta'ala wa bi kulli rasulin arsalahu Allah ta'ala. And every prophet that Allah has sent, every prophet is a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they were sent in truth to the creation, to all of to the creation, not all of creation, but to the ones that they were sent to in their time. Only our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the one who was sent to all of creation. They are human beings free. They are free, that means they're not slaves. So they cannot be slaves because they have to be free to do da'wah. So if someone were to ask the question, Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, wasn't he a slave? The answer is no. Nabi Yusuf was captured or taken by the travelers from the well and brought to Egypt. But when the Aziz, the minister of Egypt, bought him, the minister, by the words of the Quran, straight away there was a freedom. Because the minister brought him home and said to his wife, give him a noble place to stay. You don't say that to a slave. So give him akrimatwa. Give him a noble place to stay, and ennoble his living space. And he says, perhaps we might take him as a son. So this is not something you say about a slave. Perhaps we take him as a son, or we'll find some benefit in him. So Nabi Yusuf was never actually a slave. He was never actually a slave. He was honored in the house of the Aziz, and he was treated like a family member in the house of the Aziz. So and again, other commentaries on that is that Nabi Yusuf was a child, and he was a child whereby the commandment for tabligh, or the commandment for to convey the message, has not been commanded onto him yet. So when it was commanded onto him, we find him doing it in the prisons. So he's doing da'wah in the prisons, because it was commanded onto him to give da'wah to those who are around him. So and again, if someone to say, that they have to be free. So what about Nabi Yusuf in the prison? The answer's right there. Nabi Yusuf in the prison, he was with other people in prison, alayhi salam. So this is does not negate that they can be in prison. And the prophets can be in prison as long as they can do da'wah in the prisons, which Surah Yusuf is a proof that he did. And Yusuf did do da'wah in the prisons. So it's mustahil for a prophet to be in the prison alone by himself, with no one to do da'wah to. So Allah would always give prophets a place where they can do da'wah to anyone, subhanAllah, around them. So they are free of any repulsive defects, because prophets call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there cannot be anything that's repulsive about them, so that human beings have no excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This perfection in prophets is for human beings to not have any excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala why they did not believe the prophets. It is to remove any excuse. So for example, if a prophet had some form of repulsive stench about him, or a human being has a repulsive stench or repulsive Allahu Alam face, if someone has a repulsive face, or repulsive nature about them, then people will say, we never went to this person because he's so repulsive. So we could not even stand being around this person. And there could be a proof on the day of judgment why they went away from that individual. So for prophets, there's nothing about me that's repulsive. And so on the day of judgment, people can't say, oh, we stayed away from him because... because what? There was nothing about him that was repulsive. And in fact, they are all perfect. All the prophets are perfect. Right? So, and all of this is basically to prevent any argument in the day of judgment why these human beings stayed away from the prophets. To prevent any argument. So Rasulullah SAW, he is attractive in every... So the opposite of repulsive is attractive. So prophets, they are attractive in every way. They are attractive in their character. They are attractive in their speech. They are attractive in their behavior. They are attractive in their looks. They are attractive in their smell. Right? So everything about prophets, they are attractive in every angle of attraction. So it gives human beings every reason to want to follow them. See, Allah makes His proof very strong against human beings. So with prophets, you have every reason to follow the prophets. So free of any repulsive effects on all prophets, right, mashallah, and prophets, they are of many different races and many different many different looks. The prophets are of many different looks, and all of it is that they are the most good looking people of their time, of their zaman. Our Rasulullah, he is the most good looking of human beings till the end of time. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, with nobody who can be compared to the looks of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that is because human beings are just that shallow. Human beings, they follow those who are good looking, basically. Right? So human beings are like that. Right? The all human beings, the lowest of human beings. Just because somebody is good looking, they follow that person. Right? So Allah gives every reason to follow the prophets. They are the most good looking human beings of their zaman. Right? So other human beings have no excuse why you're running away from them. And the proof is in our zaman. You see how the celebrities are. The more good looking, the more they are followed. Human beings are like that. Regardless, they're so shallow, human beings. Just because they're good looking, okay, we follow them. Good looking. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu knows the nature of human beings, and Allah created all of His prophets to be the best looking human beings. Not just that, the best akhlaq. And because akhlaq is also an attraction. People follow other people because of their good behavior. Also, that they are, Allah gave them the most beautiful speech as well. So prophets have beautiful speech, right? MashaAllah. So the repulsive defects, so from noble, and they are from noble fathers and chaste mothers, right? So that nobody can blame them of a corrupt lineage. And this is the problem with human beings. Up till now, people can blame someone else just because their ancestor was a bad person. Up till now, people do it. They will say, oh, your grandfather, or your mother, or your father. And they judge a person on their ancestry. Human beings are like that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives human beings no reason to blame prophets at all. So even ancestry, the best ancestry. MashaAllah. And Haba Salma, that day, one of her classes, she was saying, I was in Malacca, and she was saying that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his ancestry is noble and perfect because he ran through his ancestry. Because of his light going through his ancestry, his light makes his ancestors noble and right. Right? So they, the ancestors, inherited from the goodness of the descendant, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his descendants will inherit from his goodness, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So his goodness is inherited by his ancestors. MashaAllah. So as opposed to, like, for us, right, you inherit from your ancestors. For him, his ancestors inherit from him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because just because he was in them, they became righteous. Right? Just because his light was inside the men of his ancestry, they became righteous. And then goes to the women of his ancestry, they are righteous. And so on and so forth. So every single one of them is righteous because they carry the light of Rasulullah. So he is the one who influenced his ancestors and not the other way around. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So by the son, the father is saved. It's one of the, I think it's how it was, Maulid, right? One of the Maulids, right? By the son, the father is Qabil al-Walida, right? Is it one of the Maulid, right? Yeah, no, it's yeah. 1000 tahun. One of the maulids, Habib wrote that by the son, the father was accepted. That means Nabi Adam's repentance was accepted because of because he did tawassul with Rasulullah SAW, the son. So it is only necessary that prophets have upright parents. And that was something that Sayyidah Maryam faced when she came to the people and she brought Nabi Isa in her arms. And she's unmarried, an unmarried woman bringing a baby, right? She disappeared for a while. She was so the Maryam's story is that she was in her mihrab, right? And the angels came and gave her the good news of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, and they blew the ruh of Nabi Isa into the womb of Sayyidah Maryam. It was said in some narrations that the pregnancy was one day. It's a one day pregnancy. She became pregnant that day itself she gave birth. Right, there was no 9 months going on, there was no 10 months, like it was that day itself, the ruh came, her tummy became bigger, and now she's in labor, right? And she runs away. And she runs away from her mihrab, she runs away to a place whereby she gives birth, right? So the whole thing happened all of a sudden, and now she walks into the town with this baby, and it said that she was only 9 or 10 years old. I said, Maryam, she was only just reached puberty in a sense, right? 9 or 10 years old, she comes in with a baby. So what they say to her, right, in Surah Maryam, is that, oh Maryam, your father was a righteous person, and your mother was not unchaste. This is the dalil. So your father is righteous, your mother is righteous. How do you come with a baby, and you are not married, right? But she has promised to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not speak that day. So she didn't speak. She pointed to Nabi Isa alayhi salam, and Nabi Isa spoke, and Nabi Isa defended his mother. I say that he is Abdullah, he is a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he has come, he's a pure word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Nabi Isa alayhi salam. So Nabi Isa, right, from the Quran, from the words of the Bani Israel, who say that Nabi Isa's ancestry is a righteous father and a chaste mother, because they were the parents of Sayyidah Maryam alayhi salam, and she is the most chaste. So Nabi Isa has chaste ancestry. You can see that as righteous ancestry. And so this is something that is compulsory in the right of prophets. So they were sent to the creation to guide them, to be role models, and to convey the message. It is compulsory to honor all of them and not differentiate between any of them, and we must know 25 of them by name. Inshallah, as I go into the next book, Al-Awam, we will go into it in more detail, inshallah. Okay, inshallah, we'll stop here for today at Malaika, at the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are there any questions? I didn't. No. There are no questions. We'll stop there for today. Wassallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala.
If permissible for us to say that Nabi Adam is making maksiat by eating the fruit, because I heard some scholars using the word maksiat.
That's wrong. Okay, so the question is, can we say that Nabi Adam committed maksiat, right, or a sin by eating the fruits? Okay, that is wrong to say, because prophets cannot commit maksiat, and Allah never called it a sin. In the Quran, Allah never called what Nabi Adam did a sin. Allah did not say it's a sin. Allah called it a zalal, a slip. It was a slip. If you hear Qasasul Haq by Habib Omar explains what happened to Nabi Adam was that Nabi Adam, being in paradise for very long, in the Jannah for very long, and Shaitan tried many ways to convince him to eat from a tree, right? But what I heard from Habib Omar was that Nabi Adam began to be forgetful. While he was in Jannah, he was forgetful, right? So Shaitan, in trying to trick Nabi Adam over and over again, Nabi Adam actually never fell for any of his tricks, right? But what happened was that Shaitan began to say to Nabi Adam, "Oh Adam, eat that tree," and he points to a halal tree. So Nabi Adam eats it, and it's nice. And he goes to another tree. Adam, this tree is a halal tree, not the haram one, halal one. Nabi Adam eats it. And he said, Adam, how about this tree? And he eats it. How about this tree? And he eats it. So in his eating, trying all the trees in Jannah, eventually, without realizing, Shaitan says, Adam, this fruit is the best fruit. And Nabi Adam ate it, not realizing that it's the haram tree. He forgot it's a haram tree. He forgot. Right, so it's human. So you say in the right of prophets, they can forget. They can forget. Like how Nabi Muhammad SAW prayed 2 rakats. He forgot. So to do 2 rakats of Zuhur on purpose is haram. You can't do that on purpose. You can't do 2 rakats of Zuhur on purpose. But he prayed 2, he gives salams. And then the Sahaba were all like, what's going on? And so one Sahaba spoke up, Ya Rasulullah, is it that the rakats have changed? Is it that it has changed? The Salah has changed to 2 rakats, or you forgot? And he said, neither happened. He really forgot. He didn't even realize he prayed 2 rakats. He said, neither happened. And then the Sahaba said, no, one of it happened. You prayed 2 rakats. And he said, is this true? And everybody said, yes, it's true. You prayed 2 rakats. And then there's a story where he stood up and prayed 2 more. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And from this incident, so did he commit a sin? No. But something human happened to him. Forgot. It's human. So Nabi Adam, what happened to him? He forgot. He forgot which is the tree that Allah said cannot go. Which is the tree that is a haram tree? Which one? Oh no, he forgot. Which is the haram tree. So when Iblis was very well aware which is the haram tree. So Iblis said, this one. So when he ate it, then it occurred to him, this is the one that is haram. This is the one. So Allah never called it a sin. But Allah called it a slip. It's a slip. Right? فَأَزَلَّهُمَا الشَّيْطَانِ. Right? They slipped, right, from this. So all prophets, we don't say sin. Even Nabi Yunus, when he left his town before permission, this is a very clear story. Nabi Yunus, the angels told him tomorrow the clouds of punishment is going to come. He was told. So in the morning he saw the clouds coming. So he assumed, again human error, he assumed that it's time to leave. But there was no izn yet. Allah did not give permission yet. So Nabi Yunus saw the clouds of punishment coming. The angels told him the clouds of punishment are coming. So the azab is coming. Time to go lah, right? Correct. But there was no izn. So he overlooked that. There was an oversight on his part, Nabi Yunus. So not on purpose he left without Allah's permission, but in the situation, okay, azab coming, halas, go out, right? We're supposed to leave, right? Right, so he left without realizing he made a mistake. Supposed to wait for izn yet first. Allah did not give any izn. He forgot that part, and he walked out because the whole thing pointed to him leaving the town. So he left. That's why he said, La ilaha anta subhanaka inni kuntu minadh dhalimin. But there was no sin. There was no ma'siyah. But it's just human error. Fatiha. اللهم صل وسلم على الفاتحة.